Hey, did you know that 70 to 80% of all of our accidents out there in the workplace over the last 20 years have been the result of bad communication? At least that was considered to be a major factor in those incidents. Now, stop and think about what I just said. So here's what's going on. The American Society of Safety Professionals, who are our environmental health and safety pros, are always doing studies to try and figure out how they can reduce workplace incidents, keep us safer on the job. Good deal. What they did is they went and they looked at the contributing factors to incidents, for instance, for the last 20 years, and they found out that in 70 to 80% of those incidents, the major or one of the major contributing factors was poor communication in the course of doing the job. So what does that mean to me, the worker? Well, that means that if I can somehow improve my communication on the job, maybe I can reduce the chance of my family getting that scary phone call by a factor of maybe up to 70, 80%. I could be up to 70 to 80% safer on the job if I could just improve some communication skills when I'm out there working. Okay, if I can be safer, reduce the chance of that phone call, I'm all for that. Let's hear what we got to say today, okay? So anyway, welcome to EC&M Tech Talks. Today we're going to talk about job safety planning, and we're going to look at four topics. First thing we want to do is we want to examine the compliance issues. What is it I got to do? That's what I always say. Hey, just tell me. You don't need to recite all the OSHA section numbers and that to me. Just tell me what I got to do, why I got to do it, okay? Then the next topic we're going to look at is the job safety plan itself. You're already doing these probably. Things like JHAs or JSAs we'll talk about, but the job safety planning process then. The job briefing, that's an OSHA requirement. Got to comply with that. But that's going to be the third topic we'll take a look at then. What is involved in a job briefing? How do we do it? And what if I'm working alone anyway, right? And then the last thing we're going to do is we're going to go back here to the panel board and we're going to walk through and just tie all this stuff together, and we'll do a walkthrough of a job safety plan, okay, and a job briefing, and see how maybe we could reduce that chance, 70 to 80% of that incident happen. I'm all for that. So let's get started with the compliance issues then. What do I have to do? Just tell me what I got to do, and I'd like to know why today, all righty? Well, one is OSHA says so. The Occupational Safety and Health Administration says I have to do some pre-job planning. Now, if you go look through the OSHA requirements and say, where does it say pre-job planning? It doesn't. All right, what it does, it uses other terms. It says like the employer must conduct a hazard assessment before we go and do the job. We have to do that hazard assessment and figure out how we're going to protect the worker once we assess the hazard. So we have to ID the hazards and figure out how we're going to protect ourselves. And we're doing that all the time anyway. And you say, well, no, not really. Yeah, wait a minute. Any of you do confined space entry, for example? That's a good example, confined space entry. So if I'm going to go down, pull the cover off of this vault, and I'm going to go down in that vault, I just don't casually do that, do I? I can't just jump on the ladder and go down in there. Oh, man, there's a whole lot of pre-qualification work that has to go on. One, I got to be qualified to do that. I'm not going to be working alone. I'm going to have a lot of paperwork to fill out. We got to sample that environment before I go down in there. Maybe we need some ventilation. Somebody's got to be standing by to rescue me. They got to know how to do that. They got to know how to save my life in case I get in trouble. And it's all documented, isn't it? You have procedures for that. Same is true for fall protection, working at heights. I just don't go, I worked at a power plant with 600 feet up that stack to the top where you had to work on the lights. You just didn't casually go, climb up 600 feet and go work on the lights. No, there was a big process before you went and did all of that, didn't you? Having to be a qualified person, written procedures and so on, fall protection requirements, harnesses, on it goes. So we're already doing this stuff. It's not like we're not doing it. You're probably doing things like JSAs, job safety analysis, job hazard analysis, but for some reason, we don't seem to be addressing the electrical hazards as we should. So that's why we're here today. We're talking about that. So when it comes to compliance, without going through all of the quotations from OSHA and the NFPA 70E standard, and it doesn't matter if I fall under construction, which is OSHA 1926, or if I'm out there working in a manufacturing plant and I fall under OSHA 1910 subpart S for general industry. It doesn't matter. I have to comply. Oh, we got state requirements. We have a state OSHA. Okay, that's going to be at least as restrictive as federal, if not more restrictive. Well, I work for the government. We don't have to comply with OSHA requirements here in this county or city or whatever. Well, bottom line is, I always say, in the unlikely event if something should happen and the employer, the organization, you, whoever it is, finds themselves on a witness stand, you've got to explain to a judge and maybe a jury why you knew and the employer knew that had you done this, nobody would have gotten hurt. However, you chose not to do that because, well, it doesn't apply to me. And that's not going to fly. We know that now. Too many court cases to document that. So anyway, we're going to follow the rules and regulations of OSHA, 70E, and so on and so forth. The bottom line, what are the 3 things that I need to do to comply? The 3 things I got to do. I got to assess the hazards. I have to put it in writing. And then I have to go out and do the job. That's execute that plan. So let's talk about that. I assess the hazards. How do I assess the hazards on that panel board? There's no sticker on it. PPE category method. Check it for normal operation. All of those type things. We'll walk through all of that. Then I have to put all of that into writing. Why? Because I'm a human being and I can't remember all this stuff. So I'm going to document it. I'm going to write it down. And not only do I want to write down what the hazards are, but I want to take a look at, well, how badly could they hurt me if something did happen, okay? And then the big thing is, maybe next column over, how am I going to protect myself so I don't get hurt? So what are the things that I'm going to do to prevent me, the worker, from being injured while I'm out there doing this job? Now I can come up with a plan of attack, can't I? And so that's the last thing I've got to do is just simply go ahead and review that plan with some qualified person and then go out and execute it and do the job. Okay? So that is our compliance issues. Now the next thing let's look a little bit about the job safety plan itself. Now in the end here we're going to walk through a job safety plan, some more details than what you might expect. So like I said, you might already be doing the JSA, the JHA, job safety analysis, job hazard analysis. And now you're saying, well, Randy, I got to do another one. Well, now hold on. What you have to do is you have to assess the electrical hazards. Whether you put that into an existing JSA or JHA, you want a separate document, that's up to your organization. But you have to come up with this written job safety plan for doing the electrical work. A lot of our JSAs, JHAs, we look at them and they're great for things like fall protection, slips, trips, and falls, warning unauthorized people to keep away, cleaning the work area up, on and on it goes. Basic safety things. Is anything going to fall on my head? Those type things. All right. Do I have on a hard hat? Am I wearing my safety glasses? All those types of issues. So that's great. We need to do all that. And then often in those JSAs, what I see is when you get to the electrical section, is there a shock hazard? Yes. Okay. What voltage rated gloves are you going to wear? Class 0, whatever. Okay, that's good. All right, next topic. You haven't identified and analyzed the electrical hazards, okay? So we need something that goes into a little bit more depth when it comes to job safety planning in the electrical world. Now, you say, in fact, I'll give you an example. Working with a major food manufacturer, they said processor, oh man, everybody was pushing back. You're adding 4 hours to every job. I got to go out and reset overloads. I got 2 more hours of paperwork to do now to go out. No, let's hold on. Actually, we sat down and they went through it themselves. They had an existing software program for all of the work that they do and for their maintenance work. And onto their form, or actually they made an additional form that was a job safety plan for doing electrical work. And they divided them up. They only had X number of these job safety plans for electrical. So they had one for troubleshooting in an MCC bucket, one for troubleshooting in a control panel, They had, I think, one for resetting overloads and so on. They had a one for racking breakers. They were all tied to written procedures that they already had in their plan. And so when they go to do a job, those just automatically print out. So they're standardized. The only thing they have to do is fill in a couple of details, like maybe voltage levels or specifically what they're doing or something like that. But it's already listing things like PPE requirements for them and the information from the label and so forth. All of that's in their programs, in their software. So it's really, like they said now, I go back there and they say, oh, it takes us about 1 to 2 minutes to do the job safety plan for electrical. We just fill in some blanks on the computer, hit print, and there it is. Okay? Makes sense to me. Anything to make the job easier. Now, after we do the job safety plan, we've got to review it and we've got to talk about it, right? That's all going to be part of this job briefing, as we're going to see. So we have to come up with a job safety plan that's specific for electrical. Once again, how you implement it, that's up to you, but you need it. You need it to be written. It needs to address the safety, the electrical safety hazards that we face, or the electrical hazards that we face, and figure out how you're going to protect yourself from those. Now, this job safety plan that we're talking about right now, it has to be done by a qualified person. That only makes sense, okay? We want a qualified person to do that. And it's got to be documented. It's got to be in writing. If you have to write it out longhand, it's going to take a little while. Most places don't do that anymore. Now we do it on the computer. We have the software, don't we? Makes life so much easier. What are the items that we can expect to be in this job safety plan? Well, for one thing, there's going to be, I always say there's an administrative block up at the top, right? It might, who's filling this out? What's the work order number? What's the location of the equipment? Who do I contact? Operations, blah, 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 blah. All of that administrative stuff. But when it comes to the nitty gritty, there are probably 6 items that I'm going to need in this job safety plan. First thing I need to know is what the heck am I doing? Give me a description of the job. Tell me what it is am I doing. Today we're going to go in and we're going to replace or put in a new breaker inside of that panel board. That's our job. Okay, so we're going to put in a breaker inside of that panel board. All right, I can understand that. Now I know what we're doing. Overall, I don't know the individual task involved, and we're going to take a look at that. Are there any electrical hazards? Oh, yeah. If I pull that cover off, and it's energized right now, there's definitely a shock hazard. I get myself electrocuted if I'm not careful. Is there an arc flash hazard? Could be. There's no label on there. So, I got to go to the PPE category method and get a label on my, and determine what PPE I need and where the boundaries would be and so on and so forth. So I can figure that out. So the electrical hazards, I know I got shock and arc flash. Other than that, that's pretty much electrical hazards, and burn injuries, of course, from an arc flash or something like that. But better look at the equipment and make sure it's safe to operate, safe to pull that cover off. Things like no water dripping on top of it and no corrosion or burn marks on it and stuff like that. So anyway, I'll look at all of that. I have to do this electric shock risk assessment and arc flash risk assessment. So far, I've got my job description. I've identified all the electrical hazards. I have written down on my job safety plan what those are. And now I put down the result of a shock risk assessment and arc flash risk assessment. Well, how do I do that? Electric shock risk assessment. What's the voltage on that panel? I don't know. Go look at labels, nameplates, walk upstream to the transformer, whatever it is you got to do. It's 240, 208, 480, whatever it is. Righty? So we document that, whatever that voltage level is. The arc flash risk assessment, I just said, we'll have to use the PPE category method from the tables on this. Now we have a separate tech talk that we've done on that PPE category method. So today I'm not going to spend the time, lengthy time it would take to walk through that. But there are other tech talks, so we have a tech talk just on that PPE category method. And then finally, maybe next to finally, okay, is my work procedures. Do I have any work procedures for installing a breaker and a panel board? I should have some type of maintenance procedures, work procedures on how to do this task that I'm going to do. If I don't, it could be a long day trying to do my job safety plan. If I have a written procedure that says, Set up barricades, do this, inspect your PPE, do that, inspect your meter, do this, do that, pull the cover off, do this, do that. My job safety planning becomes one heck of a lot easier, as we're going to see. Without it, I got a lot of work to do. And then finally is, I always say, and I definitely, once again, I'm documenting all of this in my job safety plan. In the unlikely event that something goes wrong back here, what am I going to do? My emergency response plan. Am I working alone? Am I working with someone else? Do I want to notify someone that I'm down here in the basement maybe, working on this panel board all alone? Do I want a second person just standing by for safety, something like that? I don't know. It's up to you to figure that out, right? You're the professional, you're the qualified person. You know your plant policies and procedures and your construction organizations, whatever's required, you follow those, right? But I need that emergency response plan. So those are the 6 items then that I need in my job safety planning for my electrical job safety plan. The next thing we're going to talk about then is the job briefing. And the job briefing, and the job briefing requirements have been around in OSHA regulations for quite some time, and we'll find them in different locations. Okay? And once again, we're not here to try and argue, well, it's in 1926, but maybe it's not over in this section, and if I fall under this, no. Don't forget the general duty clause when it comes to OSHA, which says that both you, the employee, and the employer have responsibilities. And you need to be protected from any recognized hazards out there in the workplace. And basically, you got to work together to do that, righty? Through things like hazard analysis and written procedures and so forth. So we're covered by OSHA, right? We've got to follow these rules and regulations. So let's talk a little bit about the job briefing. The job briefing has to be done by a qualified person. Now, if we're having the tailgate safety meeting in the morning before we go off and do our individual jobs, and we're discussing these, and we got 10 people in the crew and all that doing different jobs and everything, that's what happens. We have these little meetings and so on, and off we go. If we're working alone, it's a little different. Say, well, if I'm working alone, I don't guess I got to do a job briefing. It's not what OSHA says. Okay? We have to do a job briefing, even if we're working alone. Maybe that means picking up the paperwork myself and reviewing what? What am I going to review in the job briefing? The job safety plan that I just completed. I'm going to walk through it, and I'm going to step through it and make sure I'm completing all of those steps. So I have to do a job briefing. It has to be done by a qualified person. What I'm going to review is the job safety plan that I just completed, and if I have one, an energized electrical work permit. The energized electrical work permit, once again covered in other tech talks, but briefly, if I'm going to pull that panel board cover off and actually go in there, and now I can let me back up. I'm going to pull the panel board cover off and go in there and verify the circuit de-energized. Unless your plant policy procedures call for it, you don't need an energized work permit to go in and do that. To do things like routine troubleshooting and voltage measurements and so forth. But if I'm going to pull that cover off and leave that panel energized for whatever reason while I'm in there working, actually taking a screwdriver and putting a new breaker on a bus or whatever it is I'm doing, snapping it into place, whatever, I've got to have an energized electrical work permit for that. Why? Because my hazards so drastically increase, don't they? So once again, separate topic. But that's what I'm going to cover in my job briefing. I'm going to review my job safety plan, whether it's with that qualified person who helped prepare it with me or my supervisor, whoever it is. But some qualified person will conduct that job briefing. We want to make sure we document that we did it, and then we'll be ready to go to work, won't we? So this is where we kind of tie it all together, and let's go through and walk through how we're going to do this job. My job today then is I've got this breaker, and we've got to take this breaker and put inside of that, put a new breaker in that panel. Okay, we've done that a million times, right? No big deal. We've all pulled covers off of panel boards. We've all taken voltage measurements. We've all installed breakers and done wiring and all of that. That's the kind of stuff we do for a living. Hey, here's another one for you. That American Society of Safety Professionals says that 80% of our electrical incidents are due to the performance of routine tasks. 80% of, what does that, wait, back up again? That means, hey, I've pulled that cover off 1,000,000 times. You don't need to tell me how to do it. Well, guess what? There's a lot more likelihood that you're going to be injured today pulling that cover off than if it was something you had done rarely or maybe never before. That's kind of weird, isn't it? But why? Think about that. Routine job done 1,000,000 times. I don't need no stinking help with this. I can just do it. I got a screwdriver around here somewhere. Oh yeah, here, and off I go. Probably not the way I want to do my job, huh? So anyway, let's walk through them, this process of how I might go about without a job safety plan of getting this job done. So I've got my tool bags here. I've got some PPE. I've got, if I had to, I've got I could go back to my PPE category method, and maybe I need my face shield, a balaclava, and I don't know for sure. I really can't tell yet. I mean, I wouldn't know until I know what the incident energy is, and there's no label, but I don't know, it's just, I don't think that it'd be a good idea to take that chance, so maybe I'll put it on. Maybe you know what? My PPE category method table, though, I don't carry that around with me. It's in some 70 ebook or somewhere in a procedure back in the shop. I just got all my stuff down here to the basement to replace that breaker. What's the likelihood that having done this job 1,000,000 times, been doing this for 30 years, that I really need to go back up to the shop and look at paperwork before I replace this breaker? I'm just saying, not saying it's right, but human nature is also a big factor when it comes to electrical safety. So I know I need to get that cover off, right? I should set up a barricade. I'm gonna need a meter. I got a meter right here and test leads. Should be good. I used it yesterday. Got a proving unit just to test and verify, make sure my meter's working okay. You know what? It's really safer if I lock this thing out, isn't it? So I'm going to go over here to the switchboard, and I'll go ahead and lock out, throw that breaker, lock out and tag out that breaker on the switchboard, and that should kill the power into my panel board. I think I got the right breaker there. Shouldn't be a problem. Let's see, how in the heck do I get... I'm glad I brought this with me, right? So now, I needed to set up my barricades. PPE, I got some Category 2 coveralls in here, but probably the incident energy is pretty low. Let's go ahead. Done this 1,000,000 times, huh? Come on, baby, I want a little bit more. Yeah. Whoops, I'll get that later. Okay, and then, let's see. Say, don't go anywhere, don't go anywhere. Hang loose right there, baby. I'm violating every safety procedure out there, right? Okay, I can put that over on that bench, put that there, and that's, whoa, it came off all right. Was that a safe way to do that? Not hardly, huh? But hey, I've done it 1,000,000 times. I've never been hurt in pulling the panel board cover off. That's crazy. That's the kind of trouble we get ourselves into then. Routine task, 80% of the time. Well, that's not what I want to do, right? If we look at it, I probably just fell into that 80% of those routine tasks thing about hurting myself by going into that panel board in that manner. Had I had a written job safety plan and executed it properly, little chance I would be hurt doing something like this. In fact, if there was any chance at all I thought I was really going to be hurt, I wouldn't do the job at all. Don't even have to do it, right? I always have stop work authority if I feel unsafe. So let's walk through now. Let's sit down and we're going to walk through a job safety plan, what we might do, give you an example anyway of what we might do to better plan this job and make sure my family doesn't get that phone call. Let's do that. So, as I said, in this job safety plan, We're going to have that administrative block up at the top, replace breaker, panel, LP, whatever it is, all of the information that I need to know. The switchboard may be where I'm going to go to do my lockout, tag out, and so on. Now, I also, as part of my electrical job safety plan, I have to go through and identify each of the individual tasks, each of the individual steps that I'm going to do. I might decide that the first thing that I'm going to do, my first task is, I'm going to inspect the equipment and set up a barrier. I may break those out into two separate areas. Now, we already talked about, for this panel board, I've got to use the PPE category method. It's going to tell me where my barricade is going to be set up. It's going to be either at my limited approach boundary or the arc flash boundary, whichever is furthest away. I'm going to have to inspect my equipment, the panel board itself, in other words. Go through and make sure it's suitable for normal operation. All the covers are in place, no signs of impending failure, properly installed and maintained, and so forth. Once again, all covered in a separate tech talk if you need to review that. So I decide, what is the hazard of doing that? I might say, is there a shock hazard? Is there any electrical hazard at all? I might put none in here, or an N for none, right? There's no hazard in inspecting and setting up a barricade. I don't have to worry about mitigation methods, risk evaluation, or procedures. Now, yes, I should have, in fact, certainly, whatever my plant, facility, project, whatever it is, electrical safe work procedure that I'm following, I'm going to do that. Certainly, we talked earlier about doing a lockout, tag out, so I'm going to follow my hazardous energy control procedures as well, and everybody has those, no matter what disciplines you're working in out there. I'm going to gather and inspect my PPE. And once again, there's no hazard in that. Here's the deal. Remember when I was going through, I thought, well, I have some Category 2 coveralls in there, but, you know, it's kind of a pain to put them on. They're good for, like, I think they're actually good for 12 calories or something. Why would I want to put that on? If I'm probably a really low incident energy level, my cotton clothing should be okay. I mean, come on, right? I don't know. That's taking a pretty big chance, isn't it? So if I don't write this down, I'm probably going to forget to do it, forget these steps, or just bypass them. I'm a human being. I got a job to get done. My mind is elsewhere. It's not on going through all these tasks when I'm actually doing the job. When I'm doing the job, it's getting the job done, being safe, and thinking about all the other things I got to do that day as well, right? So once again, gathering and inspecting the PPE. But I have PPE procedures. Whether I'm working construction or maintenance, I should be looking at my PPE procedures, make sure I'm following all of those requirements for inspection, category ratings, and so forth. Removing that panel cover, it was pretty shaky the way I did that. I did drop one of the screws down there, and you know, it was really kind of high up. A little step ladder might have helped. We know that's a pretty small panel board. If that were a big three-phase panel board and I were trying to get that cover off of there, maybe it's a type where I have a hinged cover on it that I could open it up. That would be great, maybe not. Having to pull those covers off can be pretty dangerous because that cover could fall into the panel board. That probably should be a two-man job, my opinion. So I should have had somebody down there helping me, shouldn't I? And so that would be part of my job safety plan. Well, I need to go get old Charlie if I'm going to do this job. Let me go grab him, see what he's up to. All righty? So I need to think about that. If I don't think about that beforehand, I'm down there on the job. I'm a little bit in a bind. I could use some help getting that cover off. What am I going to do? Try and get the screws back in and go look for Charlie or something? I'm gonna get the job done, all righty? That's my human nature anyway. So removing that panel cover, there is a hazard. I'd say that certainly there's an arc flash hazard, so I might put an A in there. And certainly there's a shock hazard if I drop that cover in there. And so what's the mitigation? I might want to get 2 people on that. So I'll make a note in there, 2-man rule, something like that. And I've already got my barricades established and all of that. But I'll have 2 people. I'll have somebody to give me a hand, help get that cover off of there. That only makes sense. What's the risk evaluation? Well, if I'm doing it by myself, and you use your own risk evaluation. There's a sample one in 70E. But once again, You have to have your own electrical safety program documented in writing. Your methods for hazard assessment, for shock and arc flash risk assessment must be in that procedure. So go look at your procedure and see what it says to do, alrighty? Now, I do my risk evaluation, removing the panel cover. If I was going to remove it by myself like that, especially a larger one, I'd say, oh, that's pretty dangerous. I really don't think I'd really rather not do that by myself. And so I might decide that it's too dangerous, okay? So it's too dangerous to perform as it is. So what I have to do, that forces me to say, wait a minute then, if it's dangerous, I can't do that job. I need to stop. I got to do the job, folks. So what I need to do is figure out what are my mitigation methods. Oh, I'm going to use another worker to assist me in this job in getting that panel cover off. If I wear my appropriate PPE, follow all my safe work practices, and get old Charlie to help me pull that cover off, I feel good about that. So maybe in that case, my risk evaluation would be low. Or maybe I put a check in there deciding whatever my procedure calls for, something to identify that it's safe for me to do the job. Once again, I'm always following my written procedures. Once I get that cover off, I threw the upstream breaker and put the lock and tag on the switchboard breaker, remember? Well, I didn't actually do it, but that's where I do my lockout tag out. And so I need to go into the panel board and verify it de-energized. Just because I threw the breaker doesn't mean it's dead, right? I always do my live, dead, live test, another tech talk, right? But I do my live, dead, live test and verify it's de-energized. So, is there a hazard? Oh yeah, there's an arc flash hazard and there is a shock hazard. The arc flash hazard, depending on the results of my PPE category method, how severe that would be. So I'm wearing my PPE, probably got on a face shield, balaclava, whatever, wearing my rubber gloves, leather protectors, all those type things. My arc-rated coveralls I would have put on, ear canal inserts, safety glasses, all of that, right? And shock protection, whatever that panel is, 240 volt panel, that one. So yeah, that's danger of electric shock. So I'm going to wear my at least class 00 rubber gloves rated for 500 volts, ACRMS. And so what are my mitigation methods? Well, I'm going to wear my PPE. That's good. To do my live, dead, live test and verify I did in fact get the right breaker. I'm going to inspect my meter. So I'm going to probably put something in here, some verbiage about my meter inspection, which is probably part of my procedure. And whatever else I'm doing. Oh, my proving unit that I've got back there, I'll be using my proving unit, make sure it works properly and so on. So I go through, and I could keep going from there, couldn't I? Once I verify it is in fact de-energized, it's in an electrically safe work condition, all of that PPE can come off and I can go ahead and put the breaker in there and close things up. So that is the level that I need in that job safety plan for electrical. I need to go through and verify that, walk through each individual step and verify that each individual step on this job is safe to perform. If it's not, I need to get it down to that safety level, that it is safe to perform, then I can do the job. Once I do my job safety plan, we talk about it. If it's 2 people, we have a job briefing with the 2 people. The qualified person in charge, is the one who conducts the job briefing. If I'm working alone, then I review this job safety plan on my own to myself. I go through all of the steps, stand in front of the equipment, whatever I need to do, and walk through it to make sure that I'm going to be safe. So if I go through, do my job safety plan, do my job briefing, there's a 70 to 80% less chance that my family is going to get a phone call today about an incident. That's worth it. Hey, so do your job safety plans, do your job briefings, be safe out there, and we'll see you at the next Tech Talk.